And you thought it might have been a quiet off week for Pitt as the Panthers wrap up that first 3 quarters of the season. They get a week off before they head into the final 3 games. Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami, this huge stretch that we've talked so much about already before it even happened. Pitt's not even into it yet, and we've already broken it down and talked a lot about it, about what it means and what's on the line for Pitt and what's at stake here. But you might have thought there'd be a little bit of a quiet off week, an off week without much news, and everybody could take a deep breath and relax and get ready for those games, starting next week. But that's not the case because there's lots to talk about and lots in the news. We've got rankings to discuss. We've got recruiting to discuss. And just in case we need one more word that starts with R to talk about, we can talk about red shirts because we wrote about that on Panther-Lair.com yesterday. And if we don't get to that today, then that'll make a good episode for tomorrow. But rankings, recruiting, lots of things going on. Let's dive into it here on the Wednesday edition of the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's Wednesday here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know what we always do on Wednesdays? I mean, typically on Wednesdays we have something planned out during game week, but this week will be a little bit different because it's the off week. But what we always do on Wednesdays all year round is we have the live Panther-Lair show. That'll be tonight. We're actually going to have to change the start time tonight. I have a little bit of a scheduling conflict. We're going to have to start at 9 o'clock. I think that's the time we'll start. Probably we'll go till at least 9:30 like we typically do. We might go a little bit later, just depending on if we have things to talk about. Maybe it'll just be a shorter episode, shorter live stream than it often is due to being the off week. But we'll get started at 9. We'll jump through all the Pitt football conversation. We'll talk about Pitt basketball and all those kinds of things. And we'll spend as much time as we need to talking about everything going on in the world of Pitt sports. But if you tune in at 8:30 and we're not there yet, we'll be around in a half an hour. We'll get started right at 9 o'clock too. None of these delays in getting started, waiting till 9:03 or something like that. We'll get going right at 9 o'clock. And so adjust your schedule accordingly. And of course, you want to make sure you don't miss our live streams, our post-game shows, or anything like that. Subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com and turn on the notifications. Then you'll get an alert sent to your phone when we go live, and you won't miss anything we do right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Let's talk rankings. College football playoff rankings came out last night. And after all of the, I don't know how much teeth gnashing or whatever you want to call it there was about Pitt being left out of the AP poll or the coaches poll. It doesn't matter because those polls don't matter. I mean, they matter for perception. They put a little number next to your name, but they don't matter. The polls that actually matter started last night with the College Football Playoff Selection Committee rankings, and Pitt made that one. They weren't good enough for the Associated Press. They weren't good enough for the coaches poll, but they were good enough for the CFP committee, and they checked in at number 24. This is the second time. Actually, it's the third time, I want to say, that Pitt has been in the initial College Football Playoff Committee rankings. They were actually in the first ranking last year. It was right after they had lost to SMU. They were 7-1, and they showed up at number. I have this right in front of me. I do. I have the whole list. This isn't going to be hard to. They were at number 18, and then the next week when they lost to Virginia, they fell out of the rankings and, of course, did not climb back in. And then the other time that they showed up in the initial college football playoff rankings was 2021. They started off at number 25 in the first ranking and then climbed to 21, 18, 17, and 15 before they were number 12 in the wake of the conference championship games. 2018, Pitt made the CFP once. They were number 24 after they beat Wake Forest to win the Coastal Division Championship, and then they fell out the next week after they lost at Miami. In 2016, they were ranked twice. They were number 25 in the final regular season ranking. They were number 23 after the conference championship games, even though they didn't play in the conference championship game. And they finished there. So all told, this is the 11th time Pitt has been ranked in the College Football Playoff Selection Committee rankings. Not really very good to only be ranked 11 times over the course of 12 years that they've been doing this. I think it goes back to 2014. So this is the 12th year of the College Football Playoff and the 12th year of the selection, the CFP rankings. And for this to only be your 11th time getting ranked is not great, but there are plenty more weeks left in this season to run that number up, and we'll see how Pitt is able to do. You would assume that they'll at least get one more week in the rankings since they don't play this weekend. And then it'll be up to Pitt and what they do on the field, how they do against Notre Dame, how they do against Georgia Tech, how they do against Miami. Incidentally, all three of those teams are ranked in this first CFP ranking. Notre Dame is number 10. Georgia Tech is number 17, and Miami is number 18. So lots of ranked opportunities there, assuming all three of those teams stay in the top 25, at least through their matchups with Pitt. There are opportunities there for quality wins, impressive wins, resume wins, and it certainly starts next Saturday with Notre Dame, who's number 10. Of course, Notre Dame's going to host Navy this weekend. Navy's 7-1. That's a 7:30 game, so you can watch that Saturday night. And if Notre Dame were to lose that game, it would hurt their standing in the CFP rankings. But it's not like they're going to drop out. I doubt, unless they get absolutely destroyed, that they would even drop out of the top 15, and I'm guessing none of that will happen. They'll stay at 10 or climb. After a win, they'll be 7-2, and you'll have a pair of 7-2 ranked teams facing off at Acrisure Stadium in 2 weeks, which is exactly what you want to have happen. That's the exact scenario that I think you were hoping for all along. And a few weeks ago, we all started imagining it was possible to have that scenario, and now it looks very realistic, if not a sure thing, that you'll have two ranked opponents facing off, two teams ranked in the College Football Playoff Selection Committee rankings, facing off at Acrisure Stadium at noon on November 15th. They announced that kickoff time on Monday. We didn't really get a chance we didn't really talk about it on Monday night because we were all focused on Pitt basketball, but that's a noon game. Look, I always, when people talk about kickoff times and people have opinions about kickoff times, I have to be honest, my opinion is completely influenced by my own experience, and my own experience is not wanting to be at the stadium until 1 in the morning. So you may like primetime games. I don't know if you do or not. I'm not sure what your preference is. Maybe you like the 7 o'clock game or the 7:30 or the 8 o'clock game. But for me, that means being at the stadium until midnight or 1 a.m. and then coming home and doing the postgame show, which we've had fun doing those postgame shows after late games. The West Virginia game in 2022, that Thursday night, we had a couple hundred people watching live at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, early Friday morning after that game. And it was a lot of fun. I don't know about you, but I paid for it on Friday. It was difficult to be productive on Friday. Still managed to get some things done that next day. But I'd much rather have a game at noon or even 3:30 where we can sort of operate on more reasonable hours. And so I'm all for the noon kickoff. If you ask me to pick my favorite kickoff time, it's probably 3:30. I just like those 3:30 games. It gives you a lot of time to get things done in the morning. And it's just I've talked about this many times. It's just a cool vibe at a 3:30 game where it starts, the sun is out, it's bright, it's the middle of the afternoon, and by the time you get in deep into the second half, the sun has gone down, particularly now after the time change. The sun has gone down, the lights are on, it's electric, and it feels like a primetime game, but you're still getting done by 7 o'clock or something. So, but that's my own personal preference. Little digression there. Pitt, Notre Dame at noon, that works for me. Hopefully it's not too much of an inconvenience for you. But going back to the college football playoff rankings, there are 5 ACC teams in the CFP rankings. Virginia is number 14, Louisville is number 15, Georgia Tech 17, Miami 18, and then Pitt at number 24. Panthers, of course, lost to number 15 Louisville at home. They don't play Virginia, and then they'll get Georgia Tech and Miami in the final 2 games down there at Georgia Tech and then home against Miami to close out the regular season. And so, I think if there's a takeaway from this ranking, there's a couple takeaways actually from Pitt being number 24 in this first CFP ranking. The first takeaway is that the committee clearly looked at who Pitt has been since they changed quarterbacks. And it's sort of and I think somebody on the message boards pointed this out. We might have talked about it on the live stream in previous weeks or mentioned it. It's sort of the opposite of Florida State a couple years ago, right? Where Florida State got left out of the playoff because of their change at quarterback, because Jordan Travis got hurt, right? There was nothing else that Florida State did wrong to prevent them from being in the playoff other than losing their quarterback. It's sort of the flip of that. The committee looked at Pitt and said, okay, this is a 7-2 team, but since they changed their quarterback, they've gone 5-0 against conference competition, And they are playing like one of the best 25 teams in the country since they changed their quarterback. And I think it's respectable that the college football playoff committee, the selection committee, gave Pitt credit for that and said that you're not the team that started off 2-2. You're the team that right now is on a 5-game winning streak since changing its quarterback. You're a team that is 5-0 against 5 ACC teams. You're scoring a ton of points. You're outscoring your opponents by 3 scores on average per game, and you are a different team. And we're going to rank you according to the team that you are right now, not completely ignoring who Pitt was in the first 4 games, because I think that's why Pitt's number 24 and not number 15 or 17 or something like that. I think you can't pretend like those first 4 games didn't happen, but you can, and so you take it all into account, But obviously, I think Pitt being in the polls at number 24 shows I think they put more credence in who Pitt has been in the last 5 games. And the biggest thing, as far as when people start getting into a conversation about at-large spots in the playoff, if Pitt were, what are Pitt's chances if they don't make or win the ACC championship game? What I've said is I feel like it's a long way to go, right? Like you have a long way to climb. And we were just looking at this as Pitt not being ranked in the AP poll or the coaches poll, said, boy, it's a long way to climb up to the top 12 over the course of 4 or 5 weeks, really over the course of 3 games. Pitt debuting at number 24 puts them in that conversation. Like you have to, they're clearly getting respect from the committee. I think with this ranking, the committee is clearly saying, we think Pitt is a pretty solid team. We think you've been very good in your last 5 games, and we are absolutely willing to consider you as one of the top 12 teams if you can take care of business here. And I think if they do take care of business, if they can beat Notre Dame, who's going to be a top 10 team when Pitt faces them, if they can then beat Georgia Tech and Miami, assuming those 2 teams don't completely fall off after, taking, their reputations taking a bit of a hit in recent weeks, I think there's every reason to believe Pitt could play itself into the top 12 even without making or winning the ACC championship game. And things are so bunched up at the top of the conference, and the tiebreakers are so not convoluted, but a little bit. It's a challenge. And the path for Pitt to get there to the ACC title game, there is a path, but it's a complicated one. And it requires a lot of different things happening, not the least of which is Pitt winning out. Now, Pitt does win out. If they could find a way to go 10-2, I think there's also a very clear path to a spot in the top 12. It's not going to be guaranteed. I think that's probably one of the biggest overall points is that Pitt does not control its own destiny. Whether it's with the ACC championship game or with an at-large bid, they don't control their own destiny. But I think the committee has put a path in front of them that if you can knock off number 10, if you can knock off a team that's right now number 17, potentially could be top 15. If you can knock off a team that's number 18, it potentially could be top 15. Or if it just stays in the top 20. If you could finish your regular season with 3 wins over ranked opponents, then you very well may deserve a spot in the top 12. And maybe that's what the committee laid out for Pitt with this ranking last night was, almost sort of saying okay, we think you might be pretty good. And we're going to put you at number 24 right now, knowing you've got these 3 games here to prove that you could be in the top 12. We are going to give you some credit for what you've done, and we're going to put this road ahead of you. Can you, now what do you do with it? And I think that's the question we're all asking too, right? What do you do with it? So we'll see. We'll see what they do, but this is a good place to start. You needed to be here. You needed to be in the ranked in the polls. You need to be in that first CFP ranking so you could move forward and have a chance to capitalize and get yourself into potentially an at-large spot. All right, I knew we were going to go long on the rankings, so we won't get to the redshirt conversation today, but we do need to talk about recruiting after Pitt got another commitment for the 2026 recruiting class this week, committed on Monday. This is Joshua Pittman, a defensive player from Kings Fork High School in Virginia, a guy who took an official visit to Pitt during the NC State game. Matt Sig from Fort Cherry was here, and the other visitor that day was Joshua Pittman. He's a 6'3", 225-pound defensive player. We list him as a linebacker in the 24/7 Sports database. When you watch his film at his high school, he plays as a defensive end basically, but he's standing up. It's like a four-man front, but the two ends are standing up, so you could almost sort of call it a 2-6-5 or something like, you know what I mean? Like not 2-6-5, but 2-4-5, whatever you want to call it. Either way, he's going to be a defensive end at Pitt. Like I say, he's about 6'3", 225 right now, and that's the kind of size of guys that Pitt likes to bulk up and move to the defensive end spot. And he's really productive off the edge. He's a really good pass rusher, good athletic type of player, and seems to fit well. Real quick look at his recruitment. He had offers from a bunch of ACC schools and some other power conference schools: Virginia Tech, Duke, Indiana, Michigan State, NC State, North Carolina, Syracuse, Wake Forest, West Virginia all offered him. He committed to Virginia Tech in the spring. Didn't totally reopen his recruitment after Brent Pry was fired, but he did start looking around, and he took an official visit to South Florida a couple of weeks ago, actually the week before he visited Pitt, and then he took his official visit to Pitt and announced his commitment on Monday. I think this is a really good ad. Like I said, right now, Pittman's ranked as a 3-star prospect in the 24/7 Sports composite. I think he's going to get a bump, maybe not on the composite, but on the 24/7 rankings, because I know our analysts really like Pittman and how he's played this year and how he has looked. I think 24/7 Sports has him ranked just outside the 4-star range. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets bumped into that 4-star range or very close to it. He's currently the number 22 prospect in the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, as it were. And I think he'll probably get a bump there. And I think we'll end up ranking him as a defensive end prospect. He's currently a number 74 linebacker prospect in the country, but I think he'll get, we'll classify him as a defensive end, and I think he'll be ranked accordingly, and that'll probably, I think you'll see him move up nationally in the rankings. Now, Pitt has 2 defensive end prospects committed in this class, Joshua Pittman and then Reston Lehman, the defensive end from Peters Township, another guy who plays a lot of linebacker, stand-up pass rushing type of stuff, but he'll be a defensive end at Pitt as well. And those guys are the 2 defensive ends in the class. The one other guy, Logan Nagel, defensive lineman from DePaul Catholic in Wayne, New Jersey, could play end or tackle. He's a big 6'5" guy, so that's kind of bigger than Pitt's tackles usually are, but he'll play somewhere along the defensive line, could potentially be a defensive tackle. He's another one that's sort of just outside that 4-star prospect range, just like Joshua Pittman. And it's like these groups, and like maybe defensive line and defensive end is a little bit of an exception, but like when you look at Pitt's defensive recruiting, I think there are a lot of position groups where you just give the coaches the benefit of the doubt. Whatever you think, you might like a player, you might not like a player, you might like his offer sheet, you might not like his offer sheet, you might think his film looks great, you might not really know what you're looking at when you look at film. With some of these guys, but And for a long time on the message boards, it's, well, I'm not just going to blindly trust the coaching staff. I'll make my own evaluations or whatever like that. But, I think there are some guys, particularly on this Pitt coaching staff, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, that have earned the benefit of the doubt. I think Ryan Manilak has earned the benefit of the doubt with linebackers. If there's somebody that Ryan Manilak likes, okay, he's done well enough that I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And, I think a lot of the guys he's gotten have looked really good. If there's somebody Corey Sanders likes at safety, I'm probably going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And Archie Collins at corner, too. Tim Doust, we're still trying to find out how he is, so I guess we reserve judgment a little bit there. But, I mean, like, if Manilak likes a linebacker, if Sanders likes a safety, if Collins likes a corner, okay. Like, it kind of, I'm a little less interested in what their offer sheets are, because these guys have a track record of getting really good players who fit the system. And I mean, you can go down the list of the linebackers, how that's become a strength of the team, how safety has been arguably the most consistent position since Pat Narduzzi got to Pitt, and how good the corners have been and the guys they've put in the NFL. Like, these guys have all earned the benefit. If for some reason you find yourself inclined to doubt them, they've earned the benefit of the doubt. And it's only one guy, but Mason Heichel's success over the last 5 games has earned Cade Bell the benefit of the doubt. So, we talked about it last week when he got the underclassman quarterback to commit, Kevin Verpiley. Like, okay, he didn't have a great offer sheet, but Cade Bell likes him. Cade Bell really liked Mason Heichel. Mason Heichel has turned out to be, the best freshman quarterback in Pitt history. One of the best freshman quarterbacks in the country. I think we give Cade Bell a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. And, Tim Doust isn't there yet. We'll see how his recruiting and development, proceeds. As he moves through his second year as Pitt's defensive line coach. But I do think when you look at Joshua Pittman, when you look at Reston Lehman, when you look at, obviously, Logan Nagel, like, they've got some good guys in this class on the defensive line. It looks like a strong class, another strong defensive class overall. And I think, the defensive line is certainly part of that too. So Pitt's now up to 21 commitments in the class of 2026. It's a top 40 recruiting class right now. I think you could see some guys get some recruiting bumps and end up, maybe 1 or 2 of them move from the 3-star status to the 4-star status. Maybe that helps their recruiting ranking, but it's been pretty well established that Pitt's recruits tend to outperform their rankings for one reason or another, which we could probably spend a whole other episode of the Morning Pitt, maybe more than one, talking about. Either way, another commitment for Pitt in this class of 2026, another really good-looking athlete in terms of like athleticism and his ability as a football player. I say nothing of his aesthetic appeal, just a good athlete, good playmaker, really good football prospect, and looks like another good fit for Pitt's defensive line. All right. We'll keep it rolling with more Pitt football talk, more Pitt basketball talk, more recruiting talk throughout the week. Don't forget, tonight's live stream is going to start at 9 p.m. Don't tune in at 8:30 because we'll be starting a little bit later than that. But you can be sure you don't miss it or any of our time changes by subscribing to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com and turning on notifications. That way you get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Hope you've had a great week so far. We'll see you tonight for the live stream at 9, and we'll talk to you tomorrow for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.